Hi, Scott Palazzo. Welcome to my circle.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I have only the coolest people, so you're definitely in the group for sure.
I don't know. Tell me about it. I've seen quite a few of the shows. I really enjoyed them, and I'm a little intimidated by the company that's you've been keeping. So I hope I fit in.
Well, aren't you sweet? Well, for the rest of the group, let me announce your title as CEO and founder of Palazzo Wine, award-winning winemaker of Napa Valley Wines. And as you know, I always like to say how we know each other. And we're actually starting to rack up some miles. I think we've known each other about 3 or so years now. We met through our friend Jay Bean.
Yeah.
And we have just had some fun times together drinking wine. And
we have mutual friends, David and Kelly.
That's true.
Yeah. I'd met David through
Jay as well.
And then met his wife, and we've all become friends. And she loves music and is a singer, so we go and support her shows. I love it.
I love them too. So, the funny thing about it is when I first heard about you is I had taken Jay to dinner in LA for his birthday, and I think it was the Little Door.
Oh yeah, sure.
The Little Door, and. So since I was taking him out for his birthday, he says, "Oh, I would like to order, my friend has wine here. We're going to order just a glass of it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I'm taking a glass of wine. You know, it's probably very simple. And I think it was like $100 for the glass. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they're a great support of my wines from day one, and I love those guys. That's funny that I didn't realize.
It's such a sweet restaurant.
Yeah. Great atmosphere.
Well, and that was my first time trying your wine, and it was amazing.
Oh, great. So glad.
And so from that is where he thought to make the introduction, because you moved to Laguna Beach.
Yep.
So now you are an Orange County local, which is kind of nice. Well, when you're not in Napa Valley.
I grew up in Orange County and then been up in Napa full time these last, 10, 12, 15 years. But my father passed 3 years ago. And my mom's here in Orange County, and she's in her late 80s, and we were too far away. Mm-hmm. We needed to be closer, and so we moved our main home down here so we could have access and be there supportive, and the kids could see grandma, and it's worked great. It's been fabulous, so I really, really love it. I saw my mom almost once a week for lunch or something, so it's blended. It just means I drive and fly a lot, which is fine,
Yeah, well, that's a worthwhile reason to come. So it appears, well, it's funny because David Ems was my wealth manager, and one of the pieces of advice that David gave me was never invest into food or wine. Did any of your friends tell you?
Jay told me that afterwards. That's a funny story. I didn't know the joke and the adage, how do you make a small fortune in the wine business? Start with a big one. There's a lot of train wrecks along the way. Yeah. Highway 29. Actually, Jay took me out to in Santa Monica. I'll think of the name of the restaurant years ago now, and we were sitting there catching up, building our relationship. We met at a party, and I was pouring Palazzo, and his wife came over. "Oh, I'd love wine. Could I get a glass?" At the time, and she goes and gets her husband, and he comes over and goes, "This is your wine?" And I go, yeah. And he goes to San Francisco a lot. Jay Business brought him to San Francisco, and I'm 35, 40 restaurants in San Francisco support the wines, and I was so excited. He's like, "I've been drinking this wine for a few years. This is really good wine." "Oh, well, thank you so much." But he was incredulous. Yeah. Like, "No, you don't get it. I'm a wine guy." And he was, and that was the way we met and started talking wine. And then he's the one who probably knew more about the wine business than I did, and he's the one who sat at this bar on PCH in Santa Monica and told me, "Do you know how many people who have way more money than you'll ever have in your life have crashed and burned and not been successful?" And I said, "Well, don't tell me this stuff. I don't want to know." My goal, could I make world-class wine? That was the goal. And it was a second or third career, quite frankly, when it all started. And I've been very fortunate, and the wines do well, and I'm proud of them. But when you learn it could have went other ways, yes, you get very humble and very thankful. Yeah.
Well, it appears you hit it out of the ballpark at the first time up to bat with the Palazzo 2003 Right Bank proprietary red wine that I believe received a 95 point.
94 points that first vintage, and then it was rescored by Mr. Parker 10 years, 12 years later, he did a wonderful retrospective of all the wines I had made to date, and he bumped it up to 96 points. So it was
Who
nice.
gets that?
Yeah, it's you love it, you appreciate it, it's important, and it was. I love to tell the story when you make wine. I'm American. I like things fast, right? And instant gratification, as they call it. And I had been in service industries and entertainment, and we'd finish a shoot, and the tapes that were given to the producers if I wasn't producing, and you get paid and you go on to the next shot. Winemaking is just the opposite. It's like I got this great idea, when I was midlife, I guess it wasn't a crisis, but I shifted gears and decided I was going to pursue wine at about 45, left the entertainment business. And your mom and dad aren't very excited about that.
No.
They're like, what? You're doing what? You work so hard to attain success in the entertainment business and all that. And I said, well, I'm tired of that. I want to try something new. But when you start wine, it's 3 years or so before you have a bottle of wine. And speaking of which, you just reminded me, I happen to bring a gift for you for having me on the show. This is the 2016 Palazzo Right Bank Proprietary Red.
Wow.
And that's the wine we're talking about. It started in 2003. It's Merlot and Cabernet Franc with just a splash of Cab Sauv. And when I was younger, we'll get into it maybe later, but I lived in Bordeaux. I'd gone to Europe.
I love the label too, by the way.
Thank you so
I think you have
much.
such a classy label. I'm very label picky. I almost don't want to drink a wine if I don't like the label.
The label's got to represent what's in the bottle. I agree with you. And actually, my ex-wife did all my labels for me. We're great friends, and she's a fabulous artist and designer, and I'm so glad you like it. But please enjoy that. That's my thank you to you for having me on. But it was funny because you get so excited in the beginning, and you're picking fruit and you're harvesting, and it's very energetic at seasons, and August, September, October, November. But as the winter comes in and all your wine's in barrel, December, you get up and what am I going to do today? And there's not much, everything's dormant. You go over to the winery and you look at your oak barrels that are filled with wine, and then in January you do that, and then in February and your friends, of course, are saying, hey, they run into friends you hadn't seen in 6 months or a year. You told me you're going to make a wine. Hey, where's that wine? Can we have? And I'm like, it's been 6 months. It's going to be a while. They don't get it. It's 3 years, and so even my mom and dad, are you sure you're making wine? Like, are you doing? You in Europe? So what are you doing?
You actually school?
Exactly. And so when your wine comes out, I always tease, it's like the birthday balloon where some of the air's snuck out of the balloon, and you're not quite as excited and you're not as energetic. It's like, oh my gosh, I hope somebody likes this wine besides me and my mom. I mean, I'll be honest, because it's been a long time. It really has, and you don't keep that energy because you've now picked 2 more vintages. So you're 3 years into wine before the first baby gets to be shown. And it taught me patience.
Give me an understanding. So after you pick the grapes,
right,
and they go into all the process and
harvest, sorting, crushing into barrel for aging, anywhere from 16 months, 18 months, 24 months, depends on the style of the winemaker and the wine you're making.
So in that time frame, you don't touch it at all.
No,
it's just in the barrel.
That's not true. You'll rack the wines maybe 2-3 times a year, depending on. The wines are living and breathing, and so you want to get air into them and oxygenate, but it's purely racking off and then back into barrel, and they're just growing up nice and slow and getting all their complexity and nuance. But it's hurry up and wait for sure. And I used to tease after about 6 months in, before the harvest of the second year, I used to go to the winery and stare at this wall of oak barrels, and I would call friends, and my older brother, who I love tremendously and a much smarter and wiser businessman than me, I said, I feel like I'm in the oak barrel business, not the wine business, because I didn't know anything in bottle. It was just barrels.
Well, now, are you like sipping and tasting along the way to see how it's aging?
Of course you are, and just making decisions for about racking, but you're not doing much until the master blend phase, which is 2 years later. And then you'll put your wines together if they're done in a style like mine that are a blend of combination of Bordeaux varietals. And then it gets laid back into barrel for 3 to 4 months and then bottled. And then it lives in bottle for 2 years. So it's quite the ordeal. Wow. This is a brand new release that I just gave you, 2016. So that's 5 years
Okay.
That wine, I waited to release it to the public. My training was in Bordeaux. I lived in Saint-Emilion, ended up there on a trip to Europe for 3 months, and I stayed quite a bit longer. Mom and Dad were a little worried about that. I was 19. But I loved Europe, and I wanted to stay, and I was running out of money, like all the
But
kids
you come
were.
from an Italian family, right?
Yeah. My family's American-Italian, grew up drinking red table wines. I loved wine, but there was no vision for making wine. I was a kid and didn't want to go home from Europe. I really loved Europe. It impacted me tremendously and plays a big part in my life.
Do you speak any other language?
I did speak French because I was there for a long time. I've since lost it in 40 years. And my friends who were sommeliers from I'll never forget, Gregory Castells was the head sommelier at the French Laundry. And I was practicing some of my French with him, and he looked over at me and goes, "You really shouldn't speak French." I went, "Ouch!" Like, come on. He goes, "The pronounce." And I used to pride myself in the pronunciation, not how big my vocabulary. But no, it's funny. My household, my wife speaks 4 languages. She's Brazilian, Portuguese, Spanish, English, and now Italian. My oldest daughter speaks 3.5 languages. My youngest speaks 2. I'm the American who's struggling with English.
Yeah.
So I feel bad about that, but when we're in Italy, they always say to me, do you speak Italian? Luciano Palazzo is my first name. And I go, "No, but I eat Italian." So, maybe that, but no, it was a process, and it was a learning curve, and it taught me a lot. It was a different industry than I'd been in, and it takes a long time. And so when that wine comes out, to have it be received as well as my first vintage did, it was unbelievably exciting. It was so rewarding to have, 15, 20 restaurants in San Francisco, Gary Danko's and Michael Mina's, and the French Laundry in my valley, arguably the #1 restaurant in North America. They picked up my first vintage ever. And
Well, I have to bring it up because our last guest, Mike Schroeder, just brought it up in his interview that he has been to the French Laundry 55 times.
Oh my gosh.
He might be one of the biggest,
that's a lot of times.
huge wine enthusiast.
Yes,
sommelier.
absolutely.
I'm going to make the introduction. You guys
Oh,
need to
fun.
meet each other
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
he's up there all the time. In fact, he's there right now.
It's a fabulous restaurant, as all the Keller restaurants are. And I was lucky. It was a big deal. I never tired of telling this story, to having my first wine at the French Laundry. It's not the norm. And I have had...
Well, while we're on the subject, let's go ahead and brag. The French Laundry, Gary Danko, Michael Mina, Per Se, Danielle, Gramercy Tavern, Spago, Ago, Drago, Bouchon, Press, Mastro's, Emeralds, Valentino. I mean, where are you not?
It's been really wonderful. When I fell into, so I make Right Bank Bordeaux, and they're food wines. They really are. They're a little more balanced and elegant. My palate was really shaped by working and living in Saint-Emilion on the Right Bank. Mm-hmm. That's where Merlot and Cabernet Franc comes from. It's a little bit cooler on the Right Bank, and those varietals do great. And they're feminine, they're elegant, and they just have great acid and really great with food. On the Left Bank in Bordeaux, it's warmer, kind of like Napa, where the big Cabernet Sauvignons do well. Mm-hmm. Cab likes it warmer, and it's a heartier grape, and it's a stronger profile. Mm-hmm. And I had, I grew up in an Italian home where I was taught from day one, wine should complement food and not beat it up. Mm-hmm. And that's my palate. And so when I got ready to make my first wine, I always made a promise to myself I was never going to make a wine I didn't want to drink. So it's like if I got to, and then you really learn the wine business. I love all kinds of wine and wines from all regions, and Burgundies and Chateauneuf de Pape, but you drink a lot of your own wine, so as a winemaker, because it's part of the business, and you're showing wines and you're talking, and friends want you to bring it over, and
you're only making one wine a year, right?
Well, no, you're depends on the winery. I made one wine for 3 years, and just the Right Bank blend. Mm-hmm. And then I had a huge honor. I don't know what it is with Chef Keller and the French Laundry, but after my second vintage being picked up there, I got a phone call, and Chef Keller asked me if I would consider making him an exclusive Palazzo Cabernet Franc for the French Laundry. And I was...
You don't say no to Thomas Keller.
Right. Is this a trick question? I'm thinking it's one of my friends teasing me because when you're wine... So in 2000, with the first vintage being picked up. All your friends tease you. It's a small valley. We're all friends. Well, so your buddies are like, ooh, French Laundry, you know, because it's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
And then they're right away like, can you get us dinner reservations? And I'm like, no, nobody returns my phone call either. My wine's in there, but I can't get in, which is the true story. But so after the second vintage, and it was picked up by the laundry, I was really proud. And chef called to say, would you consider making, I mean, I remember the moment where I was standing when I got that, Scott, it's Thomas, you know, it's like, hi chef,
Thomas,
sir.
the
You know, I was raised, you know, yes sir, no sir. And I'm like, hi chef, are we okay? Like, did you get a case of corked wine? I mean, what? And he laughs, he goes, no, he goes, look, I love the Right Bank blend and it's doing fabulous. Would you consider making an exclusive Palazzo Cabernet Franc for the French Laundry? And I was like, yes sir, how much and when, you know? And so talk about an honor, and I couldn't have bought the press that came from that experience. I'd been in the wine business, you know, a minute and a half, you know, in the scheme of things. And so
What year was that?
That was the '05 vintage. So after the '03 and '04, I did an '05 Palazzo Cabernet Franc, my first vintage. He put it at Per Se in New York, Bouchon in Las Vegas, and the French Laundry. So talk about the phone going off the hook. And again, just a huge honor. So then after that, I began a small amount of Cab Franc, and that was my second wine. And I made 2 wines for 10 years, and that was it. I didn't know that you were supposed to make 6 and 8 and 10 wines. You know, I'd show up. I remember those first years, I'd show up and put my 1 bottle of wine on the counter with the sommeliers, and they'd be like, you make 1 wine? And I go, yeah, I hope it, because the folks before me were 8, 10 wines on the counter, you know, tasting. And I'd look, I didn't know that. I was like, wow. And so the somms would tease me and go, well, you know, they'd say, you make 1 wine? I said, yeah, I hope you like it. You know, if not, it's going to be a really quick meeting, you know. But it was my goal. Could I make Right Bank Bordeaux, my training and my palate and what I love, you know, and Carneros, appellation and Napa, gave me the fruit that was familiar to that cooler region, and it allowed me to have a lighter, you know, there's plenty of grip and weight, and lots of folks think the Right Bank is a Cabernet Sauvignon, and I used to tease, I love your cab, and I say, yes, sir, thank you so much. You can call it whatever you want, as long as you're drinking it and you like it. But
because Merlot actually got kind of a bad name for a while after the movie Sideways kind of
that's
crapped all over it.
That's a really funny story. So if you remember that small movie, it happened to come out in the fall of 2003. So I had just harvested my first 40 barrels of Merlot in the winery.
So you're not going to call it a Merlot.
So exactly. And all my friends, I was living in Healdsburg at the time, and we went to the Raven Theater. I remember it like it was yesterday. And we knew it was a wine movie, but we didn't know he was going to be slamming Merlot.
Yeah.
So and I'll be honest, everyone tried to talk me out of making that wine. Really, they, you know, I mean, Napa, I've heard, aren't you going to make a cab? Cab's king. Aren't you going to make I mean, come on, what are you, nuts? And I even started a little bit doubting, like, maybe I am.
But it's a blend. You have Cab Franc in there.
But not Cabernet Sauvignon. And that's what Napa Valley is known for. And most of the cabs are 100%, 98%. It's the famous grape. And so for me to say, no, it's going to be fine, I'm going to do Right Bank. Well, literally, we had just finished harvest. We all went to the movie. And Miles in the movie is slamming Merlot, if you remember. No blankety blank Merlot. And my buddies are roaring. And they're elbowing me. You're a real visionary, Palazzo. Huh? Merlot. I mean, seriously. And I wasn't laughing because I knew that movie was going to have impact. And it did. It crushed Merlot sales. And if you look at the bottle, it's Palazzo Right Bank Proprietary Red. If you like it, we'll tell you what's in it. You know, that was the joke. And even, I forget now, but gosh, the first few vintages, if you remember, now all wine lists have a Bordeaux blend section or other reds. They have Cab, Sauv, but they didn't have a blend section for the first few years, and they didn't want to put it in the Merlot section because Merlots had a lot of nominal Merlot was being produced, and that's why that movie could make fun of it. They started, if you remember back when the go-to, I'll have a glass of Merlot, please, wine bars, and you know, and it was a soft, not very well-struck.
You know who loves Merlot is Oprah.
Oh, really?
She said that that's her favorite variety.
It's a phenomenal, you know, noble grape and some of the greatest wines in the world. I love to remind everyone about that small little chateau on the Right Bank, Chateau Petrus, $3,000 a bottle. It's 98% Merlot. Wow. So Merlot is a phenomenal grape and a beautiful, top-notch producing wine.
So why do you think more people don't
Well, we got lazy.
Like it.
So we got lazy. Well, fad. I mean, don't forget a lot of people jump on the bandwagon. What's in fashion? That's
Yeah.
what I'll drink. And so for a while, but I will say that yes, it wasn't just the cliche turned into the truth. Oh, have a glass of Merlot. Merlot, please. Some movies had it. And then there was a flood of the market. So everybody made a bunch of Merlot quickly, cheaply, and they weren't very good. And so the Miles took a shot. The funny part of that movie, and it was too little too late, but if you ever go back and catch that movie, the end of the movie, after he slammed Merlot, he is sitting over in the corner kind of sulking at the wedding, and he's drinking a magnum of Cheval Blanc. Cheval Blanc is one of the top right bank Bordeaux Grand Cru Cassé ratings. It's 95% Merlot. So his favorite wine in the movie is Merlot. But nobody sees that except the industry. We all got it, but the public didn't and didn't understand that show. So it was 3 years before my first wine came out. There's no Merlot on the label. I was a choice, and it was proprietary red, which is kind of still the standard in Napa. The top wines, although most of them are Cab Sauv based, they're proprietary reds. There is a blend. They're maybe 90%, a lot of Cab Sauv, but I decided to be, I wanted to be counted in that group. And so I didn't put Merlot. I said Palazzo, right bank, proprietary red. And the first few years, I was talking about the wine lists, so the somms at all those restaurants didn't put it under the Merlot section, even though it was Merlot dominant, because they didn't want it to, the Merlot had died 60%. 60% of national sales on Merlot crashed for 3 years. And Pinot Noir, if you remember, that was his favorite grape, went through the roof. Right. Well, guess what? Now we have a glut of nominal Pinot Noirs, by the way. They're still phenomenal Pinots, but everybody jumped on the bandwagon and made, quick, fast. So they would put it under the Cabernet Sauvignon section, and they would put Palazzo right bank proprietary red on the list. And it was great because the Somm said, I didn't want it buried and getting lost, but it also caused conversation, which is what sommeliers want with the clients. Yeah. What is this? Because a lot of folks don't know right bank is where the Merlot is grown in Bordeaux, and left bank is where the Cab Sauv is. And it allowed them to talk about the wine, and I think it helped launch my brand, a little catch-22. But yeah, that's a true story. For 2 or 3 years, I was under the Cab section. We weren't trying to hide anything, but we'd put right bank, but they wanted them to know it was a serious food wine.
Yeah.
So anyways, gosh, that's going way back.
And I also happen to know that you released your first Chardonnay in September of 2019, the 2018 Chardonnay Master Blend Series that earned you an incredible 98-point rating and won Chardonnay of the Year and Best in Class at the Sommeliers Challenge. Oh my gosh, when I got that email, I fell over for you. That is incredible.
It was special.
So with so much success in red, what made you decide to venture into a white wine?
So
was that another call from Thomas?
No. Actually, as you know, I split my time between Napa Valley and Southern Cal here in Orange County, Laguna Beach. And we had decided to open a small tasting room to get to meet and get integrated into the community. My youngest daughter's was a freshman at Laguna Beach High at the time, and we're not going anywhere. We love it and close to my mom. And I grew up here in Orange County, but so I knew I wanted to have a white wine for the tasting room, and I had made the left bank that we're going to be offering on your gift series. And so that was the impetus. And I made 250 cases, which is not a lot of wine, and it's tasting room exclusive. It's not at any restaurants or distributed. But I made a style, again, every wine I make, it emulates my palate. I love Chablis. I love crisp, aromatic white wines and really great food wines and purity of fruit, mouth-watering acidity, and just great with the chef's sauces and grilled halibut and oysters. And I mean, it's just
so nice in hot weather.
Oh, it's refreshing. There you go. And so I made where Napa's been known for the last decade at least for the bigger, buttery, oaky Chardonnays. It's not my style. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's why I love wine. There is no wrong or right wine. Like music, like art. I always tell everyone it was Some people like Monet's and the Impressionists. Some people like the Dutch masters. It's art, and wine is that too. It's your palate.
Yeah.
It was funny when I came out of the entertainment business, a lot of my entertainment friends, I'd go to the house and started bringing my wines. It was fun. And they were a little intimidated because now I was a winemaker and la, la, la. And I don't really know very much about wine. I don't know good wines. Yeah, you do. What is it? Do you like that wine?
like it?
If you do, it's a good wine.
Yeah.
And if it's not it's expensive, it's a better wine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's palates are where they're at. They evolve, they change. And so I made a Chardonnay. It was kind of a risk because Orange County, there's a lot of Chardonnay drank here.
Yeah.
There's usually 2 or 3 or 4 on the wine list at the
Yeah.
restaurants. I checked it out when we relocated, and most of them are the bigger, richer style Chard. So
I
gamble.
actually had a friend say that it's fake the way they make it taste oaky because there's really no oak flavor or no oak barrel or whatever that they're in. Is that true?
No, that's not true. Quite frankly, again, style.
Maybe he was saying buttery. That's what it is.
So buttery
is a fake
I don't want to.
flavor.
I don't want to get too. It's not a fake flavor, actually. So oaky, buttery Chardonnays means you took the juice and you crushed the grapes, Chardonnay grapes, and you put them in oak barrels, new oak barrels, and so the oak imparts that flavor profile, and it also adds weight and texture, which red wines really, really like, and some white wines. And then it goes through a second. So you fermented the grapes. That's the sugar to alcohol. Most people understand that. But there's malolactic fermentation, the secondary fermentation, and not to get too technical here, but literally when the secondary fermentation is malolactic fermentation, and lactic, when it converts from malo to lactic acid, it is the same compound that's found in dairy products, butter. So it's a chemical trace that is very familiar to the American palate and folks' palates. And so there is a oaky, buttery style if the wines are made in that style. That's not wrong, that's not right. It's just the way they've chosen to make it. Like I was mentioning, you were saying you love Chablis, the crispness, the freshness. We're at the beach. We really like having something light, can chill. It holds a chill well.
Yeah.
And so I made that Chardonnay, hoping somebody liked it besides my wife and I. And to have it, I submitted it to that was the first competition I submitted it to the Psalms. And they gave it 98 points for a Chardonnay, which is a really high score for Chardonnay. We don't get a lot of those in the high 90s. And then best Chardonnay of the competition, there was 2,600 wines. And so I really felt great about that. But the president of that association called me and let me know prior to the announcement that it also won best in show, which is really rare. And that was fun. And most of the time, almost all the time, red wines win best of show. They are bigger, they're more complex, they have the tannins, and it just gives you more to work off of. So for a white wine to win all the red wines and best in show, it was huge. In fact, when he called me, he said it's only happened twice in 28 years, and it hasn't happened in 16 years. Wow. So that's how much we liked your new Palazzo Chardonnay. Incredible. And I did it in a more burgundy Chablis style. No neutral oak, barrel fermented, but no new oak, all neutral barrels. So there's none of the wood aromatics and the wood tannins that would be imparted into the wines, and it keeps it crisp and fresh. So
do you think that was a sign that they think more Chardonnay should be going in that direction?
There's been a lot of conversations since the wine came out, and to be honest, there's certainly some wines that have been made in that way, are making their wines in that way. I just got lucky, and it all lined up perfectly, and the combination, the balance. I think wine is hugely important about balance. You've got to balance fruit, ripeness, wood components, acid, as I mentioned, and those things need to all play nice to have a great mouthfeel, to have a great texture, to smell beautiful, and then to do their job, which everyone kind of forgets. Wine is an alternative to a glass of water. Wine is with a meal. Wine is washing your tongue, so the next bite of the chef's great food is vibrant again and alive. You're starting fresh. If there's no acid in your wine and freshness, it's not going to clean off the richness of the sauces and the butters and the fattiness of a cut of steak or whatever you're eating. And so,
Well, I also learned that it's better than water when you're eating food because water dilutes the gastric acids.
You got it.
And the acidity of wine allows the acidic acids to help digest your food better.
you got it. It's better for you.
Yeah.
But on the palate, they both do that job, but wine's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And so why not if it's a great pairing? And there's folks who really are experts at pairings. And one of the great things for me, I'll be honest, when all the chefs started picking up the wines, I used to love to find out what they're serving the wines with. Because it was always, I knew a couple of base, okay, this is going to be this. But when the chefs get going, look out. Chef Keller paired the Cabernet Franc, quail, pheasant. He did some scallop dishes early on with a brown sauce, even though it's a red wine. A lot of times the sauce is more important than the protein. We all forget that. All the way up to duck confit and bone-in ribeye. So the richness and the
You're making me hungry.
No, it was. I was really proud that I could make a red table wine that was versatile enough to go with quail and pheasant and chicken all the way to bone-in ribeye. And that's Cabernet Franc, number one. It is an incredibly versatile food wine. It's one of the great food wines in the world. But we weren't, and still aren't making that many Cabernet Francs. We're starting to embrace it here in the States the last 3, 4, 5 years. But 15 years ago when I released the Palazzo Cab Franc, it was a rarity. There was certainly some winemakers ahead of me in that process and been making Cab Franc in Napa. But my style was very much leaning toward right bank Bordeaux, and it's a pretty wine. Cabernet Franc is very floral. It's raspberries and cherries instead of the brambleberry and black cherry fruit of Cab Sauv. But it's cassis and violets, very floral, aromatic grape. That's why people blend it into their Cabernet Sauvignon, because you've made this big, ripe cab, and it's heavy, and it's blackberry, and they want to add some lightness. So they put 3, 4, 5% in to their Cab Sauvs, even if they don't tell you, because they're trying to get some lift.
How did you learn all of this?
A lot of practice drinking wine. I learned it all firsthand. I'm not.
You're not a botanist. You're not a geologist.
I didn't go to UC Davis. Right? I wished I had. But I have lots of friends who know a lot more about wine than I do. I love to taste wines. I really respect smart people in the field.
Who are your favorites?
Is in winemakers or in wine or in...
Give us some favorites.
I have a huge honor. I get to work regularly with Peter Heitz. He's the winemaker at Turnbull Winery. And Peter makes a number of vineyard designate Napa cabs, and he's a 100-point winemaker 2-3 times now. And Peter is one of the smartest people I know. And so we love to taste wines together, because I went to Europe with the guitar and backpack and lived for several years in Bordeaux and got my training in the vineyards and tasting and eating and learning about blending. That was a huge, I draw on that knowledge quite regularly. Master blend sessions are where, blending is where great wines are made. And so Peter has an amazing palate, and he has all the knowledge of chemically and lab-based what's going on and why. So we'll taste together, and I'll say, this has this, and this, and it's showing this, and he can look at me and tell me why. He can tell me exactly why. And we we approach that winemaking and that at an opposite
nice to have
ends.
Smart friends.
Yes, it is. Yes, it really is. And yet he loves that. I'm lucky. I have a good palate, and it was the nuances. It's all whatever. I think the nuances are the most important thing in any field.
Yeah.
It served me in my music industry, in my music career.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So before you got into winemaking, which I believe was 2003, you had a career as a Grammy-nominated music video producer and director, and the founder and CEO of Palazzo Productions and Camera Ready Productions, which were two of the leading LA-based television production companies responsible for over 400 projects a year.
Yes.
So there's that.
We were very busy. It was wonderful.
So what in the world made you decide to leave a very successful career as a movie producer, director, to get into the wine business?
I had an amazing run in Hollywood. I loved it. I spent 18 years and did a number of different things from, as you mentioned, television and then music videos. And it ran its course. I found myself not as excited as I was when I was younger and trying to break in. And we were successful. Camera Ready Productions. Our accounts included ESPN Sports and Barbara Walters, and back then biographies. And we just did. When you're independent, you do anything and everything to pay the bills. But along the way, I ended up with the MTV account. And I love music. It's a very important aspect of my life, for my personal life. And it was so great to dovetail my passion and love for music for myself into a career mode. And I ended up, back when MTV still aired music videos, I backed into the music video business. I directed a lot. First, it was, I don't know if you remember, Behind the Scenes. It was a great music show.
Yeah.
And so I directed a number of those, and it was great. I'm like, you're going to pay me to go sit around with my bands that I grew up with loving, and songwriter for VH1. And then I backed into music video directing, and it was a huge honor. I was nominated for a Grammy. I worked with a band, Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman, who had already won many Grammys and Academy Awards for film scores, and it was a huge honor to get to work with Danny and the band. And it was their last concert and music video they ever did. They were ending their career 10 years, and they called and asked me to direct that. And we shot it at the Universal Amphitheater before they put the roof on it, and then before they closed it. But that was nominated for a Grammy. And it was really, thank you. It was really good for your career. I tease all my wine friends now, and I say it's like getting 100 points from Robert Parker.
Right?
The phone rings, because it's silly, but you're working hard, and one day you're one of 1,800 music video directors in Hollywood, and the next day you're one of the top 5 in the world. And it's nice, it's fun, and the phone goes off. So we worked really hard for the next several years.
And Danny Elfman has such a stellar name in the industry.
Absolutely.
So for you to be working with such an incredibly well-respected artist, that adds another level of cachet, I would say.
One of the things a lot of people don't know, and I like to share this, because my personality, I'm kind of outgoing, and I want to go after what I want, and I'll call. I'm not shy. And in the music video business, as a director, you're not allowed to call the bands. You have to wait till they call you. So a lot of people don't know that. And it was very hard for me because I got
Who made
all these
those
great...
rules?
That's the way the industry was structured when I got in. And so you do some projects, they decide that's the style or something like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was really phenomenal for Danny to reach out and for me to get to work on their final project. It was a huge honor. I have a ring I'm wearing. I just realized that this was a gift. So Danny had this is a guitar ring. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's a really cool ring. I love it to death. And he called me at my house in North Hollywood when the Grammy nominations came out. And two things, and I'm not very proud of this, but when the gal from NARAS, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Science, called to tell me, "Hi, is this Scott Palazzo?" "Yes, I'm calling to let you know you've been nominated for a Grammy," I hung up on her. I actually thought it was one of my friends telling someone.
Same guy that act like he was Thomas Keller.
I'm serious. And I was like, "Get out of here," click. And she called back and she said, "Is this Scott Palazzo?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Please don't hang up on me." She was a little, I said, she goes, "Did you direct the Oingo Boingo's farewell tour?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You've been nominated for a Grammy." And I said, "Get out of here." So we both had this great thing, and it was fabulous. And I got to go to Madison Square Gardens and took my mom and my wife at the time, and we walked down the red carpet. And it was, they treat you very nice when you're nominated for a Grammy. But I will say the year, my luck, the year I was nominated in my category, the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi, and Oingo Boingo were the category. So I was pretty clear that the Beatles had released their one album, and I was nominated for what they call long-form music video, although I did a number of music videos for MTV in that format. I was good at directing live rock and roll, multi-camera. Every time you're seeing a show of a band playing, there's somebody in a truck calling cameras. There's 7, 8, 9 cameras, and they're saying, "Camera 2, give me a tight shot of the guitar player. Reverse shot, camera 3," and it's very intense, and I love it. And I was good at it. And so I received a nomination. But I also went crystal clear knowing I'm going to have a blast in Manhattan because I'm not nervous whether we're going to win.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my mom. It was fun. Go down. They treat you very nice. They send you the limo. And I remember Eric Clapton was backstage and Springsteen and Whitney Houston at the time. And, and then us. And you're walking down the red carpet and the poor paparazzis, they have no idea who you are. But
they just take a picture.
They do, because they don't want to miss. And I could hear them saying, who's that coming? Who is that? And we're cracking up because, we knew. But we had fun. We had a great time. And it was really...
well, you look like a rock star.
I had really long hair at the time, so I played the part. Yeah. No, but it was one of those serendipitous events. I directed a music video and it got nominated for a Grammy. And it helped to, foster my career. And I went on to direct 60, 65 music videos, Pearl Jam, Green Day, Missy Elliott, just Willie Nelson. It was such a great experience. And again, the band's calling. And besides the bands I love, to get to work with artists that I wouldn't have possibly known. I worked with the band 311 and amazing guys and phenomenal musicians and just the Corrs, a Celtic Irish, three sisters and a brother. I mean, bands that are now my bands that I love, but I didn't know them or their music when they reached out. Yeah. So it was a real win-win, that season of my life and my career. Awesome. But I did burn out, and I did, like I said, 64, 65 music videos, and it was kind of like, do I need to do 66? Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot, and someone else should be here. And so I sold my production company. I actually took a year off, not a popular decision in your mid-late 40s with your father and your brother. What are you doing? I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And it took a while to sell my company. I woke up one New Year's Day on holiday, and the New Year's Day I realized, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I promised my wife at the time, because it was a hard 2 years, I wasn't happy. And it was... I said, if I don't have a valid offer on the table by February 1st, I'm going to close the doors and sell everything off and move on. Yeah. I came home. We were in Mexico at the time on holiday, and I came home. It was like January 5th. I made one phone call to a competitor in my industry that was good friends. We started with 1 or 2 cameras each, and if I had a 3-camera shoot, he'd lend me one, And this is way back when. And I called him and I told him, listen, Danny, I'm getting out of the business and you should buy my company. Mm-hmm. You're as good as we are. You do the same things. He goes, get out of here, come on. And I had, again, the ESPN account and Fox Sports, some great accounts. And we met for lunch. I said, I'm serious. He goes, okay. We met for lunch 2 days later. And on a napkin, like in the movies, I made an 11-point deal memorandum. I gave it to my attorney. He drafted the contracts. And we closed the deal February 1st, and I was unemployed and out of work April 1st, and I'm really proud I negotiated continued contracts for all the people that worked through my company. They all got raises and all those things that are important. They were real important the way I wanted to leave the industry. Yeah. And then I got in a van, and I drove. I lived in a year in a van and drove across up through California coast, Oregon coast, Washington, hiked in the whole rainforest. I love road trips. And I went into Canada and the Northwest Territory, and I drove the transcontinental Canadian highway to Nova Scotia, to the eastern seaboard. I went 16,000 miles in 11 and a half months, 22 states, trying to figure out what I was going to do next, because I didn't know.
Well, that's a perfect transition into my big questions question for you.
Yes.
Tell me something that people would be surprised to know about you.
Well, before this interview, there would have been more, but if I haven't said it, I thought, what would be something they'd be surprised? I never went to college. I was not good in school. I was not a great student. It was a lot about attention and attention spans. I probably suffered from a number of the dyslexia and ADD and HDAD, and that we all know about now, but back in the late 70s, mid 70s, it wasn't defined yet. And I really had a problem focusing, and I got bored a lot in school. So I think that would be, as lucky as I've been in producing Stevie Wonder concerts and Grammy nominated and making wine, I don't have a institutional background in learning. So I think that's.
I guess you're proof positive that one doesn't need to have one.
Don't tell my daughters I said that. But I think the standards have changed some. I think when I grew up, if if you didn't have a high school diploma, there was a stigma attached to that. Not everybody went to college. I think now it's required in society and the competition and where we've gone as an educated society. I think a bachelor's degree really is a starting point. I really do. I've changed. I was sophomore year of my oldest daughter's high school years is when I changed, and I said, I need to let you know this is what I feel. Not that it affected her because she was quite a student and going that track. But you evolve. You learn. You have to. The world changes, and you should change with it in those areas that if it's not compromising your mores and standards. And that was something that, this is the new high school diploma.
Well, I think it teaches structure. I think that's because I worked with a lot of interns when I had my marketing agency, and I could tell the ones that were further along in their schooling were so much better in terms of managing their time, communicating, being able to write, just some of the basic things that you need. Maybe it's not the classes that you're taking, but I think it helps. I think it helps young people with structure.
I agree. I think society has morphed and changed. Kids stay home quite a bit longer than, I left home at 17 and a half, and I was forced to grow up in some of those areas. But I do think, again, I've changed. It wasn't something that I embraced or was good at. I'm sure there's still exceptions of very talented and successful people, but for the most part, I think it's a good thing, like you're saying. And so I think that would be the most, it still comes up once in a while at parties. And I didn't go to college. And they're like, what? Jay, our mutual friend, who's an attorney and very successful. And he's like, I can't believe you, Palazzo.
Yeah.
So it was cute.
So I don't know if you're a spiritual person, but I always like to ask my guests about what do they think is the purpose of life and why do they think we're here?
Purpose of life, boy. I think the purpose of life. I don't phrase it that way often. I think really, if I was gonna gut reaction, I think it's for all of us to grow up, find our way, find out what it means to be a productive, generous, honest, caring person on the planet, and that takes a lifetime. I'm by no means claiming to have achieved that, but it's what you start doing somewhere in your late teens, early 20s, and you quit cutting corners. You realize, I realized at a very young age, I work for myself first, no matter what job I've ever had, and I'm the boss, and I know everything I don't do. If I'm cutting a corner, it doesn't matter if I got caught or not. I know. So I think that's part of why we're here. Some people seem to figure it out, and some people don't. And I
Do you think that's important to be successful in business?
No, I don't. I think it's just important to be successful and have integrity within yourself. I know a lot of people that are hugely successful that were not honest individuals. I ran into that quite often in entertainment. Love the entertainment business, still have amazing lifetime friends, but I had never met so many people who would do almost anything to be successful. It's a tough industry, and it really doesn't bring out the best in everyone. And so that was a learning curve for me.
Do you like the people you work around in wine more?
I love the wine industry a lot. It was refreshing. I was asked that a lot. And every so often, the entertainment business, there's a lot of egos and the size of planets. And you never know who's going to have them. And so you don't prejudge, but I worked with top athletes and top musicians and top movie stars across the board. We did the gamut, and you'd be caught off guard. Ouch! That was I didn't realize this person who's in that field. For the most part, the wine business has been a real breath of fresh air. Everybody loves what they're doing. It's food and wine. We work hard. There's a few exceptions. There's a couple sommeliers that can carry themselves. They've worked so hard to get a master sommelier pin. It's really difficult. 300 of them, 350 in the world. And some winemakers, and chefs, they get arrogant. Their identity's wrapped up too much in what they do instead of who they are, in my opinion. You want to work hard. You want to hit some home runs. It's great to get an award and best Chardonnay, but that doesn't what I strive for, and that's not what my goal was. You can't count on that. I never set out and say, let's get
go do good work.
Right, yeah. I mean, I never, people asked me about the Grammy nomination, and I didn't tell the crew that morning, all right, let's go for a Grammy. I mean, that's just ridiculous. They would have laughed at me.
Right.
It's, hey, let's work hard. We're being paid to be here. Let's do the best we know how. This isn't important. It's the last concert tour of this band, and we want to hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
That's what I did say as a director and calling the team together. It's the same with wine. I don't cut corners. I do everything I possibly can to do the best job I possibly can. So when I look at you and hand you a bottle, I can say, I'm really proud of this wine. I know that I've done everything I could in the vineyards, dropping fruit, canopy management, sorting berry by berry. Not everybody does that. I do. That's my training in Bordeaux. And so I don't know if everybody... I believe that you have to have integrity in yourself, first and foremost, because if you don't, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, whether you're fooling them or not.
Yeah.
So,
tell me something that you used to believe but you don't anymore.
Now you're going to really open up a can of worms. I used to believe God was not real. I was atheist until I was 22. I wasn't playing atheist. I wasn't kind of atheist. I was atheist. I didn't have a reason to believe in God. I'd never seen a representation or had an experience or any of those things. And I no longer believe that God's not real. I wholeheartedly know He's real, and it was a very profound shift in my life and orientation to being on this earth.
How has your faith impacted your life, would you say?
160%. Everything changed my life on a dime. It gave me a bigger purpose. I struggled. It's funny, I don't think about this very often, but when I was younger, 18, 19, 20, I used to struggle a little bit with depression. And it's rare when people know me now for the last time. I don't as a person. It's been so long ago, but I did. And it was, what's it all about? And why are we here? And, at a young age, what are you going to be? A doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, and this, music. And what was worth it? And trying to find something to give yourself to in your life and hope that in the end you won't be bummed that you did that and it was rewarding. And so I did struggle with finding purpose. And when I met God and began believing in this life and the life after, it gave me a reason, checking in. And so how much did it impact my life? More than anything. Everything I do, I tend to, everyone has their ways to interface in their beliefs and what spirituality but I'm I'm regularly taking readings and how am I doing? Am I on the correct path? Have I gotten off path? Which you do, we all do. And that's what you and I talked a little bit before we started the show today, and that I take a lot of time off. It serves me well. I get to quiet down. I'm very upbeat, and I talk a lot, as you can see. And at the same time, I need to balance that with quietness, nature. And so I get away regularly and just, people use the term center yourself. I'm not a meditator. It's not meditation. It's quietness. And I'm dialoguing and looking for something to resonate, whether to hear from God, however one does or not, and make sure that He's happy.
Yeah.
And that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So far, so good. I've been lucky. A lot of serendipity has graced my life. I'm a huge believer in serendipity. I've learned to look for it, things lining up, and I'm a kid from Orange County. I shouldn't have walked down the red carpet, as a first-time music video director. I rarely tell that story, but that was my first music video
Wow.
that I ever directed. So
You're such an inspiration, Scott. I mean, you've achieved so much, and it's just so it's a beautiful, beautiful story to hear.
Thank you.
There
Thank
must
you.
be
I've
a
been lucky.
special angel on your shoulder.
I think there is, and you try to listen to them, right? You don't always, but or that leading. I think it's there. I try and teach my kids, listen for it, look for it.
Yeah.
I have learned to do that.
Yeah.
Quiet down and look for whatever everyone's orientation is, and whether believing in God or my orientation, but look for the doors.
Yeah.
Look for the blessings. Look for, I mean, there's certainly times to fight and battle. If you've heard you should be doing this, I don't give up easily just because it becomes hard or difficult to attain it. But are you on the right path? Are you doing the right thing? There was someone said a long time ago, look at your wake. Look behind you in the boat. How are you doing? That'll tell you how you're doing. And was there success, or how many and so that's all. There's certainly folks who have been a lot more successful in an outward way than I have, but I've had a lot of fun in each chapter of my life. That was my goal when I was 18, 20. I wanted to have 7 or 8 lives, and I've pulled off 5 or 6. So I'm feel pretty fulfilled about that.
So tell me a goal that you've yet to reach.
I think I mentioned earlier, I don't have a new goal yet. I'm not goal-oriented. It's another thing that I know is not popular, especially today. I don't pick my own goals in that sense. I have goals within the context of being in Palazzo Wine and being the winemaker and doing the best I can and making the best wines each vintage and those things, because that's your commitment, or you shouldn't be doing it. But there is no new goal like when I got out of the entertainment business and was trying to find my next direction. And on that road trip I told you about, I went through Healdsburg, wine country, and it reminded me of Bordeaux when I was younger. And I decided to go up there. And then in about a year, I decided to make a wine. And from then on, that's been the goal. And I'm really proud of some of the achievements. The wines have done well, and I've hit some goals, some personal goals. So I don't have a new one. I thought about that. I don't have a new goal yet, because when when I no longer enjoy making wine, I won't. And it'll be quick and fast, and I will then have a new goal. Does that make sense? It's the new goal that drives me to the new adventure. And so I really wanted, do I have a new goal? And be more patient with my kids and my wife, try and keep ears and eyes open for friends that are you could be a better friend to sometimes. Those are mini little goals, but they're important ones. And it's really where I live, because the other stuff's the hard work and just so I achieved the winemaking goal. Like I had 2 young men come to my tasting room in Napa, our home, and they were both successful attorneys, and they were from San Diego, and they brought their wives, and we're talking, and I was telling them some of the stories and this and that, and they just said, "Wow, well, you made wine for Thomas Kauer, and you've got 98 points, and you're in the top 400 restaurants in America. What's your next goal?" And it stopped me in my tracks, because I did have a goal when I started wine. I was clear. I wanted to be successful, make good wine. Could I make great wines? And just because you say it's a great wine, that's nice. All winemakers think their wines are great. Right. But if 200 of the top sommeliers and chefs in the country carry your wine and say, "Hey, you ought to try Palazzo's wine," that makes you feel good. It's a pat on the back. So when they said that, they left, and I really was challenged. Like, I did achieve my goal, and in making that wine, the Right Bank blend. And it shook me for a few days. And then I realized, okay, I want to now take this small achievement. And that's when all of a sudden the French Laundry asked me about making Cab Franc. And now I make the Left Bank Cabernet Sauvignon that's gotten big 96 points. And that we're going to offer to the viewers and as part of the show. And so the Chardonnay was a challenge. Could I make world-class Chardonnay? Yeah. So there's many goals and challenges within the context of this, but there is no new, I want to be a brain surgeon. No, I don't does that make sense? I'm totally. Sorry if it's, absolutely. But it's kind of the truth. It's just right now I'm satisfied. I enjoy what I do. There's a lot of changes. You get to make new wines. But knowing my personality, there'll come a day where I'll probably say, I'd like to do something else if possible. I've made wine.
Well, until that day comes, keep making this beauty.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
we're going to
course.
keep drinking it and appreciating and enjoying you. Thank you so much, Scott, for being a guest on
Thanks
my
for
show.
having me. I loved it. And thanks so much. It's been such a great pleasure to meet you early on in our time in Laguna, and you've been a great friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Delphine Circle. If you enjoyed the episode, please check out our last two. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Delphine. Welcome to my circle.